The beggars are coming to town. Some in rags and some in shags, and one in a velvet gown.
Rupert and his mum and dad are spending the day on the beach at Rocky Bay, and the little bear asks if he can go nearer the sea to play. As he walks down to the sea, he meets his old friend, Captain Barnacle. "My grandson John's gone off somewhere," he says. "It's not like him at all. If you see him on the beach, Rupert, tell him lunch will be at 1, and the little bear says he'll keep a lookout for his grandson." From the beach, he follows a rocky path to a big rock some way out at sea, where he finds 2 bubbles on a string and wonders what they can be. He puts one in his pocket, and as he presses the other one hard, gets a shock when it pops with a bang and brings his merboy chum to the rock. "They're my sea poppers," says the merboy, "and I left them for you to find. I need your help to free someone from pirates who are not at all kind." Then he dives back into the sea, which suddenly starts to foam. And up pops a sea serpent. "Oh no," says Rupert with a groan. "Don't worry, Rupert," says the merboy as he returns. "He's perfectly calm. He'll take you to the pirates' island. You won't come to any harm." So bravely, Rupert climbs onto the great beast's back and holds on very tight as it speeds across the sea with all its powerful might. The merboy tells Rupert the pirates have kidnapped Captain Barnacle's grandson. "Find him," he says, "and pop the other sea popper, and back we'll come." No wonder Captain Barnacle couldn't find his grandson at Rocky Bay, thinks Rupert as they leave. He's here on this island, miles away. Just then, he hears voices, and taking a look, he sees the pirates far below. "Look!" a voice cries. "Someone's spying on us, Captain Crow!" In no time at all, Rupert's caught and brought before the pirate captain. "Why are you on my island, little bear?" he asks. "Come on, explain." "I'm looking for Captain Barnacle's grandson, who I know is here somewhere," says Rupert, who's then thrown in a cave and told to stay there. But deep in the cave, Rupert finds a narrow tunnel which he crawls through to a larger cave where he discovers John, the boy he's come to rescue. "They want me to work hard here as a cabin boy, keeping everything ship-shape," John tells Rupert. "But come with me. There's a way we could escape. I found that boat, but it doesn't have any oars with which to row." "That's no problem," says Rupert. "I've a friend who'll give us a tow." And he pops the other sea popper to call up the sea serpent from the deep. There's a big bang, and up out of the sea, frightened fish leap, as from the depths the huge beast appears, and as John runs in fear, he hears the pirates coming and cries, "Rupert, they found us here!" Captain Crow and his mate seize the little bear and John and hold them both tight. But, seeing the sea serpent, let go and run away in fright. "We need your help," Rupert tells the beast. "Please come to the cove over there." And the sea serpent follows John and the little bear. The merboy pops up as the chums are climbing aboard the small rowing boat. "Will the serpent tow us?" Rupert asks him, as out to sea they float. "He will if I ask him to," says the merboy. "He'll do anything for me." So, with the rope in its mouth, the sea serpent tows the dinghy. Sighing with relief, they leave the pirate's island and head for home at last. "Bye, see you soon," the merboy cries as they start going fast. They travel at great speed all the way, and when Rocky Bay's within easy reach, the sea serpent goes and the waves carry their boat to the beach. Captain Barnacle's there to meet them and thanks Rupert for finding his grandson. "That's all right," he says. "I'm just sorry he missed his lunch at 1.
Raggedy Rag Doll Friend.
Bright-colored rag clothes, buttons for eyes and nose. That's my Raggedy Rag Doll Friend. Filled with just cotton, look at it fly. That's my Raggedy Rag Doll Friend. You ask me, how is it moving?
How does it move?
Without some muscles and bones, I just give it some loving. It comes alive and I'm never alone. Old-fashioned doll is shuffling so softly. Then laughing and rolling around in the road. Tumbling and twirling, my dolly goes whirling. Then lands in my lap for a nap and a hug. You ask me, how does that moon face? Keep smiling year after year, I guess. All of my hugging just keeps it grinning from ear to ear. Is it moving?
How does it move?
Without some muscles and bones, I just give it some loving. It comes alive and I'm never alone. Bright-colored rag clothes, buttons for eyes and nose. That's my Raggedy Rag Doll Friend.
Charley, barley, butter, and eggs, sold his wife for 3 duck eggs. When the ducks began to lay, Charley, barley flew away.
Curious George
a curious little monkey. Here he comes, as happy as can be. Curious George, curious little monkey. Why is he curious? Well, let's go and see.
Curious George at the Carnival. The Carnival was in town. The man with the yellow hat had promised to take George. They drove to the Carnival grounds. At the main gate, the man with the yellow hat met his friend, Mr. Marvel, the magician. "What's the matter? You look sad," asked the man with the yellow hat. "The boss is coming today, and there aren't enough people to watch my show. I might lose my job," said the magician. "Why don't you take a look around, George, while I talk to my friend," said the man with the yellow hat. "But remember, don't get into trouble." George wandered off. It was exciting. The Ferris wheel, the food stands, the roller coaster, and then the merry-go-round. George loved the music and the beautiful painted horses that moved round and round. A bell rang. A man pulled a big metal stick, and all the horses stopped. George watched him closely. "The ride is over," said the man, and some children got off. More children got on, and he went around to collect the tickets. George sneaked over to get a better look. How did that big metal stick work? George was curious. He leaped up, grabbed the metal stick. Suddenly, the merry-go-round started. He was having a great time riding while all around him was a lot of confusion. "What's going on here?" shouted the collector. "Who started the merry-go-round?" He rushed towards the big metal stick and stopped the merry-go-round. "That monkey over there," a lady shouted and pointed at George. "Don't you know you could hurt somebody this way?" the man shouted and made a grab for George. But George leaped high up onto a pole, then down into a crowd of people and disappeared. After a while, he saw a big red and white sign. There was a man with a black cape, a tall hat, and a small stick in his hand. A few people were watching. It was Mr. Marvel, the magician. George watched carefully. He pulled a scarf out of his sleeve. Then he waved his hands in the air, and suddenly, there was an egg. Where did it come from? George was curious. Then came the next trick. The magician took off his hat, and out came a white rabbit. A few more people gathered around. A man with a notebook was watching. Maybe he was the boss. Just then, the magician put the rabbit on the table and covered it with a red silk cloth. "Abracadabra," he said, and lifted the cloth. The rabbit was gone. Where did he go? George was curious. While everybody was watching the magician, George crawled under the table. The magician's helper had pulled the rabbit through a hole in the table. "And now the greatest trick of all," said the magician. "I'm going to make the rabbit come back. Watch carefully." "Abracadabra," he said, and pulled off the cloth. And there was George. Everyone was so surprised, even Mr. Marvel. "Look," someone shouted. The rabbit turned into a monkey. "Hooray, hooray," they cheered, and clapped and clapped. What a magician. People heard the cheering and came from all over the carnival. Soon there was a great crowd. The man with the notebook came over and shook hands with the magician. "That was a good act," he said. "Won't you stay? We can talk about a new contract tomorrow." Just then, George saw the man with the yellow hat coming through the crowd. "You did a good thing there, George, helping our friend, Mr. Marvel." Then he turned to the magician and said, "Good luck, but you better get yourself a new monkey because this one's going home with me."
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was was in his counting house, counting out his money. The Queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and snipped off her nose.
One day, Mr. Gruber decided to take Jonathan, Judy, and Paddington on an outing to a nearby park so that they could hear a band concert. Paddington was very excited, especially as Mr. Gruber paid extra for a deck chair so that he would be able to watch all that went on in comfort. "It's a long time since I last went to a band concert," said Mr. Gruber as they settled themselves down. "I've never been to one, Mr. Gruber," said Paddington. "They're going to play part of Schubert's unfinished symphony later on." Paddington stared at Judy as if he could hardly believe his ears. "What?" he exclaimed. "Mr. Gruber paid 5 pence for my deck chair, and Schubert hasn't even finished writing his symphony?" "Well, it's too late now," said Jonathan. "He died in 1828. But Paddington wasn't listening. 5 pence, he exclaimed bitterly. "Shh," began Judy. "I think they're about to start playing again." But it was too late. Paddington was feeling so upset by the whole affair, he was already on his way to complain. "Excuse me," he announced. "I would like to see Mr. Schubert, please." "Mr. Schubert? I don't know anyone of that name, dear. There's a Bert what sees to the deck chairs, but it's his day off today. Do you know a Mr. Schubert, Glad? There's a young bear gentleman out here asking for him. Sounds like one of them musicians. They usually has funny names." "He wrote a symphony," said Paddington, "only he forgot to finish it." "Oh, dear. I'm sorry about that. It's too bad. No one does anything proper these days. If you want something done, you're best doing it yourself. If I were you, I'd go and wait under the bandstand. You're bound to catch them when they come off." Paddington needed no second bidding. He hurried off to the bandstand as fast as his legs would carry him. And after giving the back of the conductor's head a very hard stare indeed, he made his way in through a door in the side. "Oh, let me off! Oh, dear," said Judy. "I do wish Paddington would hurry back. I've never known such a bear for disappearing." "There's a surprise item next," said Mr. Gruber. "I hope he doesn't miss that. Young Mr. Brown does love surprises." "Gosh," cried Jonathan, "look, there's something funny going on in the bandstand." "Whatever can it be?" asked Judy. "Good afternoon, everyone," said Paddington. "I'm looking for Mr. Schubert, and I'm afraid I got locked inside the bandstand by mistake." "Well," said Mr. Gruber, as they stood waiting to cross the road later that afternoon, "they said it was going to be a surprise item, but I don't think anyone, not even the conductor, bargained for quite such a surprise. It's a good thing somebody started the applause. Otherwise, there's no knowing what would have happened. I wonder who it was." But Mr. Gruber didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the band. "Why don't you give them a wave, Mr. Brown?" he said. Paddington did as he was told, and he added several bears' cheers for good measure. "I think the man in charge saluted me, Mr. Gruber," he announced excitedly. "I have a feeling he did too, Mr. Brown. If I were you, I'd make a note of it in your scrapbook. I don't suppose it happens every day, and it's a very good way to round off a young bear's treat in the park."